The VolQuest position previews roll on, looking ahead to Tennessee football with camp beginning here in a matter of weeks. Rob Lewis, I am Eric Kane. We're going to look at Tennessee's special teams unit here today. You lose a kicker, and Charles Campbell came over and did a good job taking the place of Chase McGrath, but in steps in a new kicker. The question is, who's that going to be?
It sounds like Max Gilbert for the most part, but regardless, I guess the storyline is there. It's going to be somebody without a lot of experience or with virtually zero experience. Josh Tuberville made one field goal last year, and that represents virtually all of the place kicking, experience Tennessee has in terms of scoring kicks. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on in fall camp and definitely early in the season.
Yeah, no doubt. And JT Carver, of course, is a part of that rotation as well, or part of that competition, we should say. But you're right. I mean, you had so much stability in Chase McGrath a couple of years ago, and with Charles Campbell coming over, he had Power 5 experience, and he had made a couple 50-yarders, and he did a good job for Tennessee. You don't want to settle for field goals, don't get me wrong, but, special teams a third of the game. You want somebody who you can depend on, and right now, it looks like Tennessee's going to have to prove it there.
Yeah, kickers are like umpires. I mean, they're not sexy, and as long as if you don't talk about them, they're doing a good job. And that's Tennessee, as you mentioned, has been fortunate. It's not been something they had to worry about. Maybe Campbell and McGrath, didn't have huge legs, weren't spectacular. Man, they've both been really steady, over the past 3 seasons. So that's without question going to be something to look at in the first couple of weeks.
We'll stay with kicking. Let's go to kickoff. Josh Tuberville did a great job for Tennessee last year, kind of owning that role. Had a couple that went out of bounds, and whether it was whether he didn't shank any of them, they just kind of went out of bounds, but there was only a couple. He did a really, really good job. A touchback machine. He's got a leg, and Tennessee obviously benefited from that with great defensive field position.
Oh, and also, hand in hand with that, they do a great job with their coverage units. And I think a couple of those out of bounds kicks are probably a case of Coach Eckler getting a little aggressive with his placement, but also, showing how much confidence he has in Josh to put it where he wants to in regards to how they have the coverages set up. So that's been a real strength for Tennessee in the past couple of years, and I would expect that to be the case again.
Yeah, and also he can kick field goals as well. Got a little bit of run in the orange and white game. He has attempted a field goal on the season and an extra point in his career, so that is an option too. Let's go to punting. Jackson Ross came in last year, and he was punting with both his legs, a little rugby style, a little traditional. Had a bad first game, but really came on and was a nice weapon for Tennessee. He's an athlete. We know his story, former Australian rugby player, professional football back then. And I'm not saying any fakes should be in order, but he's an athlete, and he should only get better in his second year.
Yeah, I think that's where you don't worry about it. And, a lot of people talk about, he's played professional Australian rules football. The adjustment's not going to be any kind of a deal. I have a hard time believing there wasn't some kind of adjustment. And I'm not throwing any shade on Australian rules football, but, going into Tuscaloosa or or Gainesville, you have to convince me that's exactly the same. So I'll be surprised if Jackson didn't benefit a lot from last year and isn't even more consistent this year. Because, the leg, his leg talent, is that I know arm talent's a word. Is leg talent, is that a phrase?
Yeah, that's a phrase.
Let's go there. That's pretty unquestionable. He's got a big leg.
Yeah, there was a long learning curve for him. Of course, he redshirted his first year here with Paxton Brooks still on campus. And, I remember him in a media appearance last year saying when they threw a flag, he didn't know what that meant at first. So he's learned football. He's learned these rules. And at the end of the day, special teams coaches have to waste time in practice to game plan for Tennessee's punt execution. Rugby, either side, traditional. That's a good thing going for Mike Eckler.
Yeah, I agree. And special teams, by and large, for return game, kicking game, everything, since Heupel's been there and since Eckler's been in charge, really been a strength.
All right, so Matthew Solansky coming back. He's either in his 5th or 6th year. He's been here a while. He's done a great job with the long snapping. He's going to be doing that again this year. Let's go to the return game, and 2 names that continue to come out in conversation. It continues to be Squirrel White and Boo Carter, both in kick and punt.
And they're very exciting. Man, Tennessee fans have been spoiled in the return game since Heupel's been here. Velus Jones was spectacular, followed by D. Williams, who was just Mark Eckler coined the phrase "fart in a skillet." Has there ever been he's probably the epitome of that. D. Williams was fantastic. Actually, probably won a game or 2 for Tennessee there. So, are they going to be that dynamic, that explosive? I think that's a big question. And I know we talked about it on the podcast this week. Brent had a good point. Do you put Squirrel White there? Are you confident enough with your depth at receiver to play him there? And the question with Boo as a freshman, but man, both of those guys are dynamic.
Yeah, that was the high school realm, but dynamic with the ball in his hands, that being Boo Carter. We've seen many, many games in that regard. Everybody's wanting to see Boo play. This is his quickest path to the field. I expect him to make an impact there, and then we'll see what happens on defense. But anyway, you spin it. Tennessee special teams unit looking to be a force. Often the forgotten third of the game. Tennessee wants to be a strength special teams in 2024. He's Rob Lewis. I'm Eric Kane. VolQuest position previews ahead of the Tennessee football season.